responsibility of consumers, the community, and businesses and builders. That has to be an equal effort. So that's pretty much what we talked about. Yeah.
Thank you, Diane. So we'll go to group 2 with Ann Fletcher, transportation and land use. I know you guys are meeting in the main group.
We did. We had a little slow start, but we got going really good, and I was taking notes furiously too. A lot of the things that Diane indicated in terms of making sure that we're transitioning as fast as possible to the electrification and reduction of fossil fuels was definitely covered in ours too. So I won't go into the specifics in the interest of time. But we also talked a lot about transit use and having our planned communities and having transit work with that, and that all of that goes together so that people don't need to have the need to drive, and those communities that do have to drive, that we provide the infrastructure for electric vehicles in both suburban areas and public areas where people would come to shop. Also, just simply reducing single occupant trips as much as possible. And this COVID downswing in it is not enough. We have to have that structure in place. And not only vehicular use, but facilities that we create, all these parking lots and parking areas for lots of use. We need to think about not, we don't want to encourage that. So what kind of facilities are we creating? Reducing the heat sink from asphalt surfaces and so forth from these facilities and from the driving the roads. And also the land use zoning in areas that would help us, these areas that are dependent on their cars. So any kind of new development, not having it be so far out that they have to use cars, or having the structure where there is a way for them to use transit. A comment that at some point we have to really look at ourselves and face the fact that we need to, there's going to have to be funding issues, there's going to be cost. And how can we have terms like investment or insurance for the future that makes that more palatable for people, but we have to face it. And measuring our greenhouse gas emissions and sequestration, not just annually, but ongoing and project specific. So, and a process setup that's not too cumbersome or expensive. And then we were also number 3, go ahead. I think most of the comments were be ahead of the flow. As being an example, they said, is a tradition for us, and something people would want to continue, and that if even smaller cities can do it, Berkeley has done it for an example, and a lot of other cities then will follow. If one city is bold and takes these steps, then other cities hear about it and then they follow. So we want to create that trend and not just be a follower. Stephen pushed us to think about the trade-offs, and we talked about the fact that there are things you can do that are not costly, that have a big impact. PCA coalition has developed it's called a priorities for city actions, and it has suggestions in all the areas, and it has analyzed what the cost would be for different things, and what the benefits would be, so that you can do this cost benefit kind of comparison. But we do need new funding, different kinds of more progressive tax structures than we have now, with the sales tax being we're so dependent on it, that we need other ways to get the funding for the things that do cost money.
Any final thoughts before we move to the next person?
Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. Oh, in terms of the collaboration, I should mention we need new models of collaboration. There was quite a bit of input on some kind of a volunteer structure where people could, not only the boards and commissions, but where people could get hands-on projects. This is a big deal to manage. So getting other volunteers to manage it for the city and help the city with that, so that there would be projects. And doing campaigns, maybe a couple of a year, that like Yakima did, where you actually have a baseline and you do a campaign and then you show people what progress you've made. That really makes people excited and motivated.
Great, thank you. All right, so we will go on to group 3. So that is Trish is going to be sharing for waste and consumption.
Yeah, well, I guess the thing that's nice about going third is, group 1 and group 2 basically covered a lot of what we were going to say. So I'll try and bring up new stuff, and it's great that we're all kind of on the same page. Okay, let me see. Okay, we were fortunate to have our long-term Issaquah environmentalist, Connie Marsh, in our group. And we right away brought up under the what needs to happen right away is we need to make the changes necessary in Title 16 and Title 18. And people on the in this meeting might not know what that is, but it's right now there is no or very little green building laws or ordinances in Title 16. So right now a developer can come in and just follow the law and not build green. So I think right now the Title 16 revisions aren't planned to start until 2021. Is that right?
With the Title 18 will be first, but with COVID, we have had some delays with it. But Title 18 will be coming before 16.
Right. I know Title 18 is coming first. Okay, so it could be the Title 16 isn't even going to come until 2022. Well, that's too long. That's too long. Because it means with all the increased pressure to develop in the suburbs, as long as builders can follow the law of what's currently on the books, they're not going to be building green. So we need to work with the city to do whatever we can to try and push and provide economical resources or what have you to get changes necessary that are made to the Title 16, which is the building code, and the Title 18, which is the land use code. Okay, education, we agree. We really we need to change people's behavior and it in the community, and it might mean that people need to incur expense, but they need to be able to swallow that if we want to have the long-term change that is necessary for us and future generations. We need to involve young people as much as possible. So we're thrilled that we've got some young people in the meeting with us today. Yes, there is that PCA subgroup that has put a lot of time and energy into working on that spreadsheet for priorities for the cities to take, and people should avail themselves of that spreadsheet. And so maybe that's something we can get out to the group later, because they've done all the work, and we all should be able to not have to reinvent the wheel. And I know that there's ways that they sorted it so that priorities that might not be as expensive as other priorities. And this would apply to all cities on the east side that are part of the People for Climate Action Coalition. As much as we can, we need to motivate, educate, and activate through the school system. And hopefully, we can do that through the young people.
And Trish, I might ask you to move on to question 2 if you guys had a result
Sure.
from the group about that, and then just anything from 3 quick before we move on.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, there was no question. We have to be ahead as regional leaders. Issaquah always has been, and we have to continue that way. Let me see. Okay. Oh, and then we had, Lisa from Costco, who's in charge of environmental and sustainability for Costco. Bless her heart, she volunteered that we need to turn to the big businesses in Issaquah and ask them to lead by example and to form partnerships with the smaller businesses. So Costco and REI, we're going to be calling you.
Great. Thank you,
and
Trish.
And then Connie brought up for the very last one, which says, in what ways can we, as attendees, organizations, businesses, collaborate to help address the climate change? And we really need to add in there the community at large, because the city council isn't going to vote for things unless they have the community will behind it. So we need to really, really, and you know, the community is most of the population, and that they're the voting population too. So we really need to get the community will behind all this. Okay.
Great. Thank you. All right, Lindsay, you're lucky you get about 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes to go through the last group. Lindsay's the executive director with Issaquah Trails Club. You're on.
That's great. And thank you everyone for all of your comments ahead of us. We have a lot of agreement, so I'll be brief because I don't want to repeat all of these great ideas, but I'm glad we're all on the same page in our breakout groups. So for our first question, we prioritized these 4 important things for residents and businesses to be doing. And number 1 was education and engagement, making it fun, making it popular and the in thing to do. Some way of marketing that, teaching the next generation about the individual actions we can take. So collaborating with public schools and different programs in the city, and making that education and engagement stick, I think, is the main challenge that we're hoping to build upon in future years. Feeling like, you know, sometimes these things are in one ear and out the other. How can we build a program that really sticks with our young people and really moves it to the next generation? And our second was influencing businesses, industry, and transportation to prioritize climate action, energy use, recycling, compostable materials in restaurants, things like that. How can we influence those businesses on a broad scale without, you know, changing policies? But that kind of brings me to our next, which is changing some policies possibly that would hold businesses accountable, and that being a big important thing that we could do to really take permanent action. And then last but definitely not least in our eyes with the Trails Club is protecting high priority habitats for the long term, making sure that we're also we're also removing invasive plants, doing things to cultivate and preserve those habitats as well, and reducing wildfire risks for the long term might be something that we need to pay more and more attention to as the climate changes. So that's number 1. Number 2, how bold does this need to be? We really felt that things like the bag ban has been great. Some restaurants do have compostable materials, but we don't feel like those changes are big enough to be reflective of the level of concerns that citizens have as a whole about the climate and that our community has as a whole. So we feel that there's a lot more that needs to be done. We're definitely in the C category. We'd like to be regional leaders and ahead of the flow. We do feel like Issaquah is doing a great job in terms of transportation, promoting more walkable, bikeable lifestyles in Issaquah by connecting regional trails. So that's something we're really looking forward to seeing more and more of as our regional trail system becomes more interconnected. It seems that we're really positioned well to be a trail town, which is great for businesses too. And a trail town, I guess, is a key term where people can come and visit, enjoy local recreational activities and our businesses, so boosting our economy as well, without necessarily having to get in a motor vehicle to get here. David Kepler, we were lucky to have him in our group, as he's been a leader in all of the conservation in this area over the years. He pointed out that we do, uniquely have, it's an abundance of trails, parks, and wild lands in this area, about 80-20 in developed areas. And a great example is Talus, where we negotiated for that kind of ratio when that development was created. So we do have the advantage of being a leader already in terms of having wild and open spaces that will support our climate in the future. And so we feel that we're doing well there. And then number 3, just to sum it up quickly, is what ways can we collaborate to help address the challenge? We really feel that focusing more on collaborative climate action work is important. We have so many different groups in the area that are doing similar things. And we also feel that working with the county and other municipalities is going to be really important moving forward to create more regional connectivity around these efforts. We feel like that is going to be key to our success. So that pretty much sums up our group. there.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the facilitators to start their groups now. We'll keep transportation in this main group. I'm going to go start the energy and green building. So if everyone can just wait about 1 minute and then join their breakout group. It's really exciting to hear all that feedback, and I'm excited to keep the conversations going. I'm glad that we have it all recorded so I can rewatch everything again.